What if everything you've been taught about happiness is wrong? What if the life you're chasing, the goals, the noise, the endless fixing is the very thing keeping you from peace? For centuries, philosophers tried to tell us this truth, but we stopped listening. We traded silence for distraction, wisdom for information, and the soul for the screen. Yet no matter how far we run, something inside still whispers, there must be more. Tonight, we return to that whisper. This is not motivation. This is awakening, a journey through the ancient and the eternal, where Marcus Aurelius teaches you control, Buddha teaches you surrender, and Carl Jung teaches you to face the darkness within. Together, they form the philosophy of wholeness, the art of becoming complete, not perfect. For the next 3 hours, you will move through chaos and stillness, through loss and meaning, through pain that becomes light. You will not escape life. You will finally understand it. So breathe, slow down, let the world fade, and let truth return. Because the greatest lesson of philosophy is not how to think, but how to be. And somewhere in the quiet that follows, you may realize your life never needed fixing. It only needed awakening. The night is still, but the mind is not outside. The city hums softly beneath a thin veil of silence. Inside a small room, the lights are dimmed. A single lamp casts a pale glow across the walls, and a clock ticks like a gentle reminder that time, too, is alive. Yet even in this stillness, the storm continues. He lies awake, eyes open to the ceiling, surrounded by quiet but filled with noise. Thoughts move like waves, crashing, retreating, rising again without rhythm or mercy. Regret, memory, worry, hope, each one pulling at the edges of his mind. There is no enemy here, no external chaos, only the vast and ungoverned sea within him. Let your body rest. Let your thoughts drift. The voice is calm, distant, like a tide calling from somewhere beyond the shore of awareness. And for a moment, he listens. He lets the sound of his own breathing become the only thing real. The air enters, slow and heavy. It leaves, light and quiet. Between those breaths, something changes. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The Stoics believed that our inner world paints the life we see. If the mind is disturbed, even beauty looks violent. If the mind is calm, even sorrow becomes soft. And so, the first lesson is not to fight the storm, but to understand its nature. In the language of Stoicism, thoughts are not commands, they are impressions. They arrive uninvited, whispering of the past, inventing futures, judging what already is. Most people mistake these voices for truth. But Marcus, sitting in his tent under a Roman sky, learned otherwise. He learned to pause, to breathe, to observe each thought as if it were a cloud crossing the sun, temporary, changing shape, and disappearing on its own. You don't have to believe everything you think. It sounds simple, almost too gentle to be powerful. Yet within that sentence lives a freedom most people never find. Every thought that says, "You failed," "You are not enough," "You should have been better," none of it is law. They are only echoes of a world that once wounded you. The Stoic does not silence them by force. He lets them pass like waves, knowing that the sea always returns to calm when left alone. The room feels warmer now, as if something unseen has softened. His body still, but his awareness widening. The thoughts are still there. The unpaid bill, the lost chance, the thing he said and wishes he had not. But they no longer sting. They float, detached, harmless. The mind, when unobserved, is like a child running through a dark house, bumping into every piece of furniture. But the moment you turn on the light, the chaos loses its power. The furniture has not moved, yet everything is different because you can finally see. The Stoics called this practice prosos, attention, not the strained kind of attention that tires you, but the quiet noticing that frees you. To look at a thought without judgment is to reclaim the space between you and it. In that space, peace begins. He remembers how Marcus described it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Strength, here, is not resistance. It is the capacity to let the world be what it is without letting it stain who you are. Outside, a gust of wind brushes against the window. The lamp flickers, then steadies again. In that brief moment of darkness, he sees something new. The storm that once frightened him was never outside the glass. It was always inside. And it was never an enemy. It was his own untrained awareness, longing to be known. The ocean of the mind will always move. The goal is not to stop the waves. It is to stop mistaking yourself for them. You are not the anger, nor the memory, nor the fear. You are the sea itself, vast, still beneath the surface, infinite in depth. The waves are only surface weather, brief and harmless once you learn to look deeper. And so, he breathes again. The breath no longer feels like survival. It feels like surrender. Every inhale gathers the noise. Every exhale releases it. The storm still exists, but it no longer defines him. It is here, in this quiet recognition, that philosophy ceases to be theory and becomes medicine. Marcus did not write to impress others. He wrote to remind himself, and perhaps to remind us, that peace is not the absence of thought, but the mastery of attention. When we can see our thoughts clearly, they lose their grip. When we no longer chase or fight them, they dissolve into the stillness that was always waiting underneath. The night grows quieter. The ticking clock becomes slower, almost rhythmic with his breathing. Outside, the wind has faded into the hum of distant streets. Inside, he begins to feel what can only be called a gentle awareness, not happiness, not relief, but a clear, open silence. The soul, once colored by confusion, is now beginning to take on a softer hue, not white, not pure, but calm, like deep water under moonlight. And somewhere between thought and breath, between the chaos that was and the silence that is, he realizes the simplest truth of all. Peace was never gone. It was only waiting for him to stop believing the noise. The storm has quieted, but the air still trembles with what remains. He lies there, half awake, half inside his thoughts, and yet something has changed. The noise that once swallowed him now feels softer, as if it no longer belongs entirely to him. It is as though he has stepped a few inches back from his own mind, seeing it for the first time not as himself, but as something he can simply watch. It is here that the journey truly begins, the first moment of reframing. Because peace does not start when the world slows down. It starts when you realize you are not the world inside your head. The Stoics called this prosoch, the art of attention. In modern language, we might call it mindfulness. But for Marcus Aurelius, it was a discipline of perception, to be awake within the mind, to look at a thought without being captured by it. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what he meant was not control in the harsh sense, not to silence or crush every feeling, but to see each thought as it is, a passing visitor, not a command. Now, the voice whispers, soft and low. Imagine yourself sitting by a river. The air is cool. The water moves gently beneath the silver moon. He breathes. The image comes easily. The surface of the river glimmers in the night, and leaves drift by, one, then another still. Some leaves are small and fragile, others are dark, heavy and slow. Each one carries a thought, a memory, a worry, a hope, but the current keeps moving and none of the leaves stay. The voice continues. Your thoughts are like these leaves. Watch them pass. Do not follow. Do not hold. Simply see. For the first time, he realizes that he can look at a thought without becoming it. The mind speaks. You are tired. He notices it. The mind says, you failed today. He watches it drift away. He does not fight. He does not fix. He only observes. This is the beginning of distance, the space between the observer and the storm. And in that space, there is quiet. He remembers something Marcus once said. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. The Stoics did not believe in running from emotion. They believed in watching emotion without judgment until its true shape revealed itself. To see without reacting, that is freedom. To name without fighting, that is peace. So he begins to name them gently, one by one. Here is anxiety. Here is regret. Here is longing. Like a parent recognizing each child who has come home, not to scold, but to understand. And as he names them, they soften. The very act of attention transforms them. The thoughts lose their sharpness, their authority. They become what they always were. Temporary forms, no different from the wind across the surface of the water. The moonlight spills wider now, its reflection stretching across the quiet river. The surface trembles slightly, but it no longer distorts the image above. He can see the moon clearly, soft, luminous, whole. That is what awareness does. When the water of the mind is agitated, even truth becomes blurred. But when it is still, reflection returns. He understands now that peace is not the absence of thought. It is the relationship he has with his thoughts. He is not here to erase them, nor to become them. He is here to witness them, the way the sky witnesses the clouds, patient, unbothered, infinite. The narrator's voice deepens, slowing as if sinking to the rhythm of a heartbeat. Do not rush to fix what you see. Do not chase silence. Just stay. This staying, this gentle presence, is the essence of Stoic mindfulness. It is not an escape from the mind, but a reconciliation with it. He sits by the river a little longer in his imagination. The leaves keep moving, but the river remains. It does not demand that the leaves stop. It only keeps flowing, accepting whatever passes through it. Some thoughts are bright, pleasant, fleeting. Others are heavy, painful, unwilling to leave. But he sees now that both belong to the same current, both carried by the same flow. He begins to sense something subtle, that the river is not separate from him. It is him. And the watcher who observes is also part of this same awareness. There was never a you and a your mind. There is only the still point where observation happens, silent, infinite, untouched. This realization arrives not with fireworks, but with stillness. It is not a thought. It is an understanding that rests deeper than words. In this moment, he sees how every human being carries the same river within, the same flood of thought, the same longing to be free of it, and the same possibility of peace waiting just beyond identification. Marcus wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." To the Stoic, judgment is the true source of suffering, not the thought, not the feeling, but the belief that these inner movements define who we are. And now, lying in the quiet dark, he understands. He can observe pain without being consumed by it. He can notice thought without being ruled by it. He can be both the river and the one who watches. The night deepens. The ticking of a clock fades into the hum of distant air. His breathing is slow, steady, no longer controlled but surrendered. The thoughts still appear. They always will. But they come as guests, not intruders. They arrive. They are seen. They move on. And in the space that remains, there is clarity. The mind, once a battlefield, is now a landscape. The voice, once tangled, has turned to a whisper. The soul, once colored by confusion, begins to clear again. Calm, transparent, reflecting the light above it. This is the distance Marcus spoke of, not distance from life, but from illusion. Not separation, but perspective. And in that quiet perspective, the world begins to soften. The water smooths. The moon glows. And the man, once lost in thought, finally learns what it means to see. The river of thoughts keeps flowing, but something within him has changed. The storm no longer feels threatening. Each thought still appears and fades. But now they move through a space that feels larger, gentler, and free. The distance he found between himself and his mind begins to fill with a quiet kind of light. He realizes that silence is not the absence of thought. It is the understanding that thoughts no longer have to control him. The simple act of naming them, of seeing them clearly, has softened their edges. What once felt like chaos has become rhythm. What once felt like noise has turned into breath. The narrator's voice is slow now, almost like a whisper floating above the surface of water. Awareness, it says, is the first form of peace. The words land softly. Awareness, not escape, not control. Just the gentle recognition of what is. It is the moment when a storm recognizes itself as part of the sky. When darkness realizes it was only the absence of light. He breathes in deeply. For the first time in what feels like years, the breath feels natural, unforced. The air enters, settles, leaves. There is no need to hold anything. There is no need to run. The thoughts still come and go, but they pass like shadows over still water. He remembers how Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It is not a command, but a reminder. The strength Marcus spoke of is not about dominance or control. It is the quiet courage to let things be what they are without letting them dictate what you become. The awareness of this truth is like turning on a light in a dark room. The furniture was always there, the fears, the memories, the regrets, but now he can see them for what they are. They are not monsters hiding in the dark. They are shapes of the past, harmless once illuminated by understanding. The calm that follows is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It arrives slowly, like dawn slipping through a half-open curtain. It moves through the body with warmth, through the mind with patience. He feels his heartbeat slow. The tightness in his chest has softened. His breathing falls into rhythm with the quiet around him. For a long while, he just listens to the hum of the night, to the faint rhythm of his pulse, to the stillness that feels both new and familiar. Peace, he realizes, was never a place to reach. It was a recognition of what was always here when the noise subsides. Every thought he had chased, every worry he had carried, had only been clouds drifting across a sky that was never broken. The voice speaks again, soft but steady. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus once said, and now, with awareness, he begins to choose those colors carefully, not to force them, not to paint over what is dark, but to allow gentleness to return, to let stillness color the mind until it reflects the calm of the world outside. The metaphor expands within him. The room of the mind is never truly dark. It only seems that way until someone turns on the light. The light is awareness, the act of seeing clearly, the willingness to look, even when it is uncomfortable. And when that light is turned on, even the most shadowed corners lose their power. He looks around his physical room now. The soft hum of the lamp, the outline of books stacked neatly on the table, the reflection of the window against the glass. Everything feels familiar, yet somehow new. The world has not changed, but his way of seeing it has. That is what philosophy does when it is lived rather than studied. It changes the quality of perception. It teaches the eyes to see differently, the heart to listen gently. His mind feels open now, like the night air drifting in through the half-closed window. The thoughts that remain are no longer enemies, but companions. Each carries a fragment of his story, but none define it. He lets them move, and as they move, a deeper silence rises beneath them. Not an empty silence, but one filled with presence, like the hush before dawn, or the pause between two waves. It is the kind of silence that feels alive. He remembers a final line from Marcus, one that echoes softly now. In this silence, you begin to meet yourself again. Those words do not ask for understanding. They ask for surrender. To meet oneself again is to return to what was never truly lost, to the quiet witness beneath the constant stream of thought. The man closes his eyes. His breathing slows even more. Each inhale a wave coming in, each exhale a wave going out. The rhythm feels endless, natural, timeless. There is no effort to maintain it. It simply continues. Around him, the world fades. The hum of the city is distant now. The ticking clock has softened into the rhythm of his heart. The night no longer feels heavy. It feels wide, endless, kind. Somewhere deep inside, he senses a truth that does not need words. He understands that awareness is not a destination, but a way of being. That peace is not something to earn, but something to remember. That he has been whole all along, even when he could not feel it. The narrator's voice fades with him, quiet as breath. Awareness is the first form of peace. It repeats once more, barely above a whisper. And in that whisper, the room feels full of light. The storm has passed. The river is still. And in this gentle silence, he begins truly to meet himself again. The night continues in silence. His breathing has slowed into rhythm, calm and steady, as if the air itself has learned to rest. The mind that once raced now flows gently, like a quiet stream under moonlight. He has learned to watch his thoughts without chasing them, to see them as passing shapes upon the water. Yet as the mind softens, a new question begins to rise within him, quiet but insistent. If I am not my thoughts, then who am I when the world touches me? For even as awareness grows, life does not stop moving. The world will still push, provoke, and pull. The difference now is how he chooses to meet it. This is where philosophy becomes practice. It is no longer about understanding thoughts, but about responding to the world with grace. Between what happens and how he reacts lies the most sacred ground in human experience, the space of response. The narrator's voice enters softly, patient and measured. Have you ever reacted before you even felt? It is a question that almost everyone can answer with a quiet yes. We react without thinking when words hurt us, when plans collapse, when the future feels uncertain. Our reflex is to defend, to control, to fix. But in that reflex, something precious is lost. The freedom to choose who we want to be. Viktor Frankl once wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Though Frankl lived centuries after Marcus Aurelius, the two men shared the same wisdom. True freedom does not come from controlling the world, but from mastering the self. He remembers the feeling of that truth now. The world has not changed, but his awareness has made it clearer. Each sound, each sensation, each passing thought feels slower, as if the universe has stretched time to give him room to breathe before reacting. The human heart, he realizes, often rushes to protect itself before it truly feels. When someone speaks harshly, the mind defends. When plans fail, the ego builds excuses. When love begins to fade, we grasp tighter. But beneath every reaction is a fear. The fear of losing control. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that peace begins where control ends. To be Stoic is not to suppress emotion, but to recognize that emotion is not the final truth. It is a signal, not a verdict. A flame, not a fire. The narrator's tone grows gentler, slower, like a guide teaching someone how to breathe again. Imagine a single candle in the dark, the voice says. The flame flickers when the wind moves, but when the air grows still, it burns steady, clear, alive. He pictures it, the candle glowing softly on the table near his bed. Each time the wind passes, the flame bends and wavers, but it never disappears. It waits for stillness, for quiet air to return. The candle becomes a mirror of his own mind. When the winds of emotion rush in, anger, fear, shame, pride, the light shakes. But when he stops chasing, when he lets the air grow still, The flame stands upright again. He understands now. The art of distance is not a wall against life. It is the stillness that allows life to move through you without breaking you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Those words settle over him like warm rain. Pain is real, yes, but the suffering that follows, most of it is born from the stories we tell ourselves about the pain. When something happens, the mind reacts with meaning. This is bad. This is unfair. This should not have happened. But if we step back for a moment, if we leave space before believing the story, we discover that much of our suffering comes not from the event, but from our attachment to it. That small space between what happens and what we decide it means is where freedom lives. He breathes again, deeper this time. Inhale, the world as it is. Exhale, the world as he chooses to see it. For the first time, he feels what the Stoics called ataraxia, a calm mind that cannot be disturbed by circumstance. It is not indifference, it is clarity. It is the understanding that the universe will move with or without his permission, and that the only true mastery lies in his own response to it. Outside, a car passes slowly down the street. The sound is distant but steady, fading into the soft hum of the night. He notices it, feels its echo, and lets it go. No judgment, no story, just a moment passing through awareness. The narrator's voice returns, low and reflective. Freedom, it says, is not about getting what you want. It is about knowing that nothing outside of you can take away what matters most, the peace you create within. The candle on the table flickers again, and he smiles faintly. The light bends, but does not go out. The flame dances, alive and patient, like a reminder that fragility can still hold strength. He realizes how much of life he has lived reacting, chasing after control, confusing speed with purpose, mistaking resistance for strength. But in this quiet moment, he sees that the real power lies not in doing more, but in pausing long enough to see clearly. Every pause is a return to the self. Every breath is a reminder that there is always space between thought and action, between pain and peace. The voice fades into a soft rhythm, almost like breathing. "Do not rush," it whispers. "Do not fight what comes. Let the moment arrive, let it speak, and when it is ready, let it leave." He closes his eyes. The candle still burns behind them. The world still moves. But inside that movement, there is a still point, steady, aware, free. And in that still point, he finally understands. It was never about controlling the wind. It was about learning how to let the flame stand tall, even when the wind blows. He breathes once more, slow and full. The air tastes lighter. The silence feels alive. The distance between him and the world no longer feels like separation. It feels like understanding. Somewhere deep within that space of response, he finds not detachment, but connection. Not emptiness, but peace. The candle still burns softly. Its light has steadied now, calm after the wind. The room feels wider, and so does the space within him. There is stillness, but it is not empty. It is alive, full of quiet observation. In that stillness, he begins to notice something new. It is not only thoughts that disturb the mind, but the stories those thoughts create. Every experience, every word, every disappointment becomes colored by the meanings we attach to it. The Stoics called this illusion phantasia, the mistaken perception of what is. Modern psychology calls it reframing, the act of seeing the same event from a different lens. But the truth beneath both ideas is ancient. Life itself is neutral. It is our interpretation that gives it joy or pain. The narrator's voice returns, smooth and thoughtful. There is a difference between the story and the fact. Learn to see the fact. He repeats those words silently to himself. See not the story, but the fact. He looks around the room again. The lamp on the table, the soft curtain, the distant hum of a city breathing in its sleep. Everything is as it is. No drama, no meaning layered upon it. Just what exists. Simple, uncomplicated. This, he realizes, is how peace begins. Not by changing the world, but by seeing it without distortion. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." The emperor's wisdom feels almost impossibly modern, echoing what every therapist, monk, and philosopher since has tried to say. The world doesn't hurt us. Our thoughts about the world do. He closes his eyes and lets a memory surface. A moment from years ago, a conversation that ended badly, words said in anger, a friendship that dissolved in silence. For years, he carried that wound as a symbol of betrayal. But now, as he breathes into the memory, he tries to separate the story from the fact. The fact is simple. Two people spoke. Emotions rose. Silence followed. The story is what came after. He did not care. I was not enough. It should not have happened this way. The story hurts. The fact does not. He understands now that his suffering had little to do with the moment itself, and everything to do with the meaning he gave it. The event had passed long ago, but the story, his own interpretation, had kept it alive. The voice continues, slow and gentle. Nothing outside you has power unless you let it in. The line feels both humbling and liberating. For so long, he had given power to things beyond his control, to people's words, to expectations, to outcomes that never unfolded as planned. But every time he believed a story that said, "This means I have failed," he handed over a piece of his peace. Reframing, he realizes, is not denial. It is clarity. It does not erase the pain, but reveals its true source. Like wiping fog from a mirror, it does not change the reflection. It simply lets you see what was always there. He imagines a mirror fogged by steam. For a moment, the reflection is distorted, unclear. We might think we have disappeared, but with a single gentle wipe, the image returns. The truth was never gone. It was only hidden. The Stoics understood that the mind often clouds reality with judgments. They practiced something called objective representation, the art of describing things without adding emotion. Not, "He betrayed me," but "He chose something else." Not, "This is terrible," but "This is happening." The difference is small in words, but vast in feeling. It is the difference between drowning and floating, between reacting and understanding. He takes another breath. When life feels heavy, It is rarely the moment itself that weighs us down. It is the meaning we have attached to it. The story that repeats long after the moment is gone. He remembers the candle again, how it wavered when the wind blew, not because the air was cruel, but because that is what air does. The candle never took it personally. It simply waited for stillness and continued to shine. That, he realizes, is how he must live, with the same quiet acceptance. To stop expecting the world to move without friction, to see things as they are, not as he wishes them to be. Marcus wrote, "Objective judgment, now, at this very moment, unselfish action, now, willing acceptance, now, of all external events." The trinity of a Stoic life: judgment, action, acceptance. It is not about removing feeling, but refining perception. He opens his eyes. The room looks the same, yet different. The light is softer, the air clearer. The world has not changed, but his way of seeing it has. He thinks about all the times he told himself stories of failure, stories of not being enough, of losing control. And for the first time, he sees those thoughts for what they were: stories, not truth. The facts beneath them were often simple, quiet, and kind. There is freedom in this. The freedom to see clearly, the freedom to breathe again, the freedom to let the fog lift without forcing it away. He lets a faint smile form as he repeats to himself, almost like a mantra, "See not the story, but the fact." The narrator's voice fades, barely audible now. When you learn to see the fact, it says, you begin to live in reality, not reaction. And in reality, life is always softer than the stories we tell. The mirror is clear again. The candlelight reflects without distortion. And in that reflection, he finally sees not what he imagined, not what he feared, but simply what is. Still, quiet, whole. The mirror is clear now. The fog that once hid his reflection has faded, and what remains is simple and true. He sees not perfection, not certainty, but a quiet honesty, a face that belongs to the moment, to no one else. The act of seeing has changed something deep within him. It is not the world that has grown softer. It is his perception that has become still. He sits there for a while, letting that stillness settle. The candle flickers in the corner, its flame no longer trembling. Outside, the night breathes with a quiet rhythm, the sound of distant cars, the soft hum of air. Nothing calls for his attention. Nothing needs to be fixed. The mind, once desperate to control, now rests in observation. This is the quiet that comes after understanding. It does not shout or announce itself. It simply arrives. Like light filling a room that has always been waiting. The narrator's voice returns, barely above a whisper. When you see clearly, it says, the world becomes silent. The words linger in the air, suspended like a note that refuses to fade. Silence, he realizes, is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of conflict. It is the place where everything is allowed to exist exactly as it is. For the first time, he feels the weight of nothing, not emptiness, but freedom, the kind of weightlessness that comes when you stop resisting what already is. He recalls what Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. The Stoic emperor was not asking for blind obedience to life. He was describing harmony, the art of living in rhythm with the world rather than in opposition to it. Understanding is not intellectual. It is not born in thought. It is born in surrender. He closes his eyes and listens. The sound of his breathing blends with the air. Each inhale is life entering. Each exhale, life leaving. And yet, nothing truly departs. The air continues. The rhythm continues. The world continues. To understand, he thinks, is to join that rhythm. The narrator pauses. 5 seconds of silence stretch long and wide, as if time itself has slowed. The silence does not feel empty. It feels alive, filled with presence, with something deeper than words. In this pause, understanding begins to bloom, not through more answers, but through the disappearance of questions. He sees how every reaction, every attempt to control, came from the same misunderstanding that he was separate from the flow of life. But now, in the quiet of this moment, he feels himself return to that flow. Marcus spoke of this kind of peace as apatheia, not indifference, but serenity born from wisdom. It is the clarity that comes when emotion is seen, acknowledged, and allowed to pass. He imagines a river again, slow and wide beneath a pale sky. The water knows where it is going. It does not argue with the stones or resist the bends. It does not try to be faster than the current. It moves as it must. To understand himself, he realizes, is to understand like the river does. To know the boundaries and the depths, to flow around what cannot be changed, and to carry on without bitterness. The voice returns, softer now, like the sound of wind moving through trees. To understand yourself, it says, is to know that you are both the water and the bed it runs through, the movement and the stillness, the thought and the awareness watching it. He smiles faintly. It is not a smile of achievement, but of ease. There is nothing left to chase. He opens his eyes again. The world looks familiar, yet entirely new. The small lamp still glows, the candle still burns, the night still hums. Nothing extraordinary has happened. And yet, everything has changed. It is as if he has learned a new way of seeing, a way that does not cling or reject, does not label or divide. He sees what is before him, and that is enough. Marcus once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And now, that truth feels deeper than a simple moral. The quality of thought is not about positivity or control. It is about stillness, about allowing the mind to reflect reality without distortion, like clear water reflecting the sky. He imagines his own mind as that water. For years, he stirred it with fear, doubt, and resistance. But now, as it settles, it begins to reflect life as it truly is, simple, fluid, whole. This understanding does not bring euphoria. It brings peace. A peace that is almost invisible, but steady. The kind that stays even when the world moves again. The narrator gives one final pause, letting the listener rest in that silence. The stillness feels like a soft tide drawing back, leaving only the gentle trace of its presence. To understand yourself, the voice murmurs, is to flow as life flows. You do not need to fight the current. You only need to see where you are and move with it. He exhales slowly, his body sinking deeper into calm. The river within him flows quietly, effortlessly. The light of the candle catches his eye again. It no longer flickers. Understanding, he thinks, is not about answers. It is about stillness. When you stop asking why and start seeing what is, the world finally stops shouting. He sits for another moment, doing nothing. There is no goal now, no next step, just presence. The night grows deeper, the air cooler, the silence thicker. Yet he does not feel alone. There is a presence in this quiet, a sense of being connected to something vast, patient, and kind. He breathes in that silence and lets it fill him. The candle burns low, its flame soft but unwavering, and as he watches it, he understands what the narrator meant. When you see clearly, the world becomes silent, because the truth, when finally seen, has no need for words. It simply is. The silence from before lingers, soft and alive. It feels different now, no longer empty, but full of something tender and real. The quiet of understanding has settled into him, not as an idea, but as a rhythm. And in that rhythm, he begins to notice the world again. The same candle flickers, the same night hums, yet everything has shifted. Change has arrived quietly, as it always does. He realizes that even peace is not permanent. It breathes, expands, fades, and returns, just like the tide, just like everything else in life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." It is a thought that would have comforted him long ago, but tonight, it feels like a truth finally understood. The voice returns, warm and steady, like the memory of someone who has walked this road before. Everything flows, it says. Everything moves. Outside, the faint sound of wind brushes through the trees. The world is never still, not even for a second. Yet the movement no longer feels threatening. It feels like life itself, breathing. He imagines a river in late autumn, winding through a valley of quiet hills. The trees lean over the water, their leaves loosening one by one. Some fall gently, others cling for a moment longer before letting go. The river accepts them all, those that fall early, those that wait, those that sink quickly beneath the surface. No man ever steps in the same river twice. Heraclitus said that, centuries before Marcus Aurelius would write his meditations. Two men, separated by time, yet united by the same understanding. The nature of the world is change, and to fight it is to fight the flow of life itself. He watches the river in his mind. The water glimmers under the fading light. Each leaf spins as it falls, dances for a moment, and disappears. The river never complains. It does not cling to what it carries. It does not stop for what it loses. It just moves, always towards something unseen. The narrator speaks again, slower this time, as if matching the pace of the current. Change is not your enemy, it says. It is the quiet pulse of existence. He breathes deeply, letting that truth settle. For years, he had tried to hold on to people, to dreams, to moments that were never meant to stay. He had called it love, called it effort, called it meaning. But beneath it all, there had always been fear, the fear that once things changed, something essential in him would be lost. Now he sees how mistaken that was. The Stoics believed that everything is borrowed from nature, our bodies, our time, our possessions, even our relationships. To live wisely is to love them fully while knowing they do not belong to us. Marcus wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." The river shows him how each drop of water once belonged to a cloud, to rain, to mist, to sea. Each is part of a cycle so vast that the mind cannot hold it. The leaf that falls today will feed the soil tomorrow. The water that rushes away will someday return as snow, as dew, as fog. Everything flows. Everything changes form. But nothing is truly lost. He looks back at his own life, the moments that felt permanent once, the faces, the laughter, the hands he held. They come and go in memory like drifting leaves. Once he had tried to hold them, to preserve their color, their warmth. But now he realizes they never needed to stay. Their purpose was never permanence, but presence. Change is not the loss of beauty, it is its very source. A flower's bloom matters because it fades. A sunset moves us because it ends. Even love becomes real because it cannot last forever. He feels a kind of ache as this truth unfolds, but it is not pain. It is tenderness, the kind that comes when a heart opens, not closes. Outside, he imagines the night deepening. The wind picks up, scattering more leaves into the river. The surface ripples, catches the light, and moves on. The voice returns, gentler now, like a lullaby. "Do not fear the passing of things," it says. "They are not leaving you. They are returning to where they came from. You are not losing. You are being carried along the same current." He takes another breath. The air feels cool, alive, filled with movement. Every inhale is a beginning, every exhale a letting go. The body itself is a rhythm of change. Cells die, cells renew. The heart beats, rests, beats again. Nothing in him is fixed, not even the self he once tried to define. To resist change, he sees now, is to resist life itself. He remembers the teaching of the Buddha, that the voice of the Stoics echoes within it. Everything that arises must pass. This is not tragedy, it is balance. Marcus knew it too. In his meditations, he wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom yourself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are and to make new things like them. The river, the leaves, the breath, all of it is the universe remaking itself moment by moment." He closes his eyes again and imagines himself standing at the edge of that river. The water brushes against his feet, cold and alive. He bends down, touches it, and feels time flowing through his hands. He cannot hold it. He can only feel it. That, he realizes, is enough. He whispers to himself, barely audible, "Everything flows." It feels like a prayer, not a request, but a recognition. The night grows quieter, though the world continues to move. The candle flickers again, its flame rising and falling like the breath of the universe. Change no longer frightens him. It feels natural, inevitable, and kind. He understands now that to live is to move, to lose, to begin again, to flow, not to freeze, to trust that whatever is taken will return in another form. The narrator's final words drift through the silence. When you understand that everything flows, you stop grasping at a shore. You learn to float. You learn to move with life. not against it. He breathes one last time, slow and deep. The river inside him flows gently, endlessly, without resistance. And as he lets go, he feels the simplest kind of peace, the kind that comes not from holding on, but from finally allowing himself to drift with the current of change. Autumn deepens. The river still flows beneath the pale sky, carrying with it the soft sound of leaves meeting water. Each one falls differently. Some drift slowly, turning in the wind, while others drop quickly, surrendering to the current without resistance. Yet no leaf falls in vain. Each descent feels like a lesson written in silence. Everything that lives must also learn how to let go. He watches this scene unfold in his mind, a quiet landscape of gold and motion. The air feels colder now, and the world seems slower, softer. There is beauty in this stillness, but also a tenderness that aches. It is not sadness exactly, but something close, an ache that understands. Change, he realizes, always carries a trace of grief, even when we accept it, even when we know it is natural. The heart still trembles a little when things fade. But this grief is not cruel, it is gentle, like the hand of time resting on the shoulder of life, reminding it to keep moving. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything is only for a day, both that which remembers and that which is remembered." To him, this was not a lament but an act of liberation. The Stoics saw impermanence as a kind of mercy, a reminder that everything we love, everything we lose, was never ours to own. The voice of the narrator returns, warm but distant, carrying both kindness and truth. To love something, it says, is to accept its ending. The words fall softly, like the leaves themselves. He lets them sink in. Love, when stripped of possession, becomes something purer. It no longer demands. It no longer clings. It simply allows. To love deeply is to know that all things pass and to love anyway. He remembers holding a leaf once as a child, marveling at its color before it turned to dust. He had wanted it to stay perfect, unchanging, eternal. But it didn't. The air grew cold and the leaf browned, and finally, it broke. Even then, he had felt a strange sense of peace, though he couldn't name it then. Now, years later, he understands. Beauty is not in what remains, but in the courage to cherish what must go. Everything we have is borrowed. The Stoics believe that nothing truly belongs to us. Not our possessions, not our bodies, not even the people we love. Everything is on loan from the universe, to be held lightly and returned with grace. Seneca once wrote, "He who has learned how to die has unlearned how to be a slave." Death, in this sense, is not just the end of life, but the end of attachment, the freedom that comes when we stop clinging to what must change. He breathes in deeply. The air tastes different now, cooler, quieter, filled with the scent of earth and passing time. He pictures himself standing by the river again, holding a single leaf in his hand. The veins are delicate, the color deep and warm. He knows it will soon fall, that he cannot stop it. But for now, it is here. For now, it is enough. To let go is not to stop caring. It is to care without fear. To let go is not to forget. It is to remember with gratitude instead of pain. The narrator's voice continues, slower now, each word carefully spaced, giving the listener time to breathe. When we lose, we think something has been taken, but the universe does not take, it only transforms. He feels those words settle in his chest. How many times had he mistaken transformation for loss? The job that ended, the love that changed, the youth that faded, all of them had made space for something new to grow. But in the moment, all he had seen was what was leaving. It is human to grieve. The Stoics never denied this. Even Marcus, emperor and philosopher, wrote of sorrow and fear. But they taught that grief need not consume us. Grief without despair, that is the art of living wisely. He looks at the leaf again. It has fallen now, resting gently on the surface of the river. The current carries it away without struggle. He feels a faint ache watching it go. But the ache is beautiful. It means he has loved something enough to feel its absence. To love something is to accept its ending. The voice repeats, quieter this time, fading into the sound of moving water. He lets his mind drift to the people he has loved, the moments that shaped him. Some have stayed, many have gone, but they are all here in some way, echoes in his memory, fragments in his breath. He realizes that letting go does not erase what was real. It honors it. In the teachings of Buddhism, impermanence, anicca, is not tragedy but truth. To resist it is to suffer. To embrace it is to awaken. The Stoics knew the same truth by another name, amor fati, to love one's fate. To say yes to the unfolding of life, even when it means saying goodbye. He looks again at the river of his imagination. It moves endlessly, taking everything with it. Yet nothing in it feels lost. The leaves become water. The water becomes mist. The mist becomes rain. Everything changes, but everything continues. That is the secret. He realizes the world never truly takes anything away. It only changes its shape. The voice grows softer still, almost blending with the rhythm of the night. When you can let go gently, it says, you begin to live lightly. You stop grasping at moments that cannot stay. You stop fearing the wind that carries them away. He closes his eyes. His breath aligns with the rhythm of the imagined river. Each inhale feels like the tide coming in. Each exhale, the tide returning to sea. Loss no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like flow. Grief no longer feels heavy. It feels like love wearing a different face. Outside, the night deepens. The air cools. Somewhere, a leaf falls from a tree. It lands softly, without sound, joining countless others in their quiet journey downstream. He lets himself follow it in thought, carried by the same invisible current, until all that remains is the motion, the simple, endless motion of letting go. The voice fades with one final whisper, tender and sure. Everything you hold, hold gently. Everything you love, love freely. And when it is time, let it go softly, like a leaf learning how to fall. Night drifts onward. The sound of the river fades into a hush that feels endless, as if even time itself has slowed to listen. Somewhere in that quiet, a truth begins to take shape, softly, without resistance. He can still see the image of the leaf floating downstream, carried gently by the water's hand. There is no struggle in its movement, no tragedy in its letting go. Just rhythm, just flow. The same rhythm he now feels within himself. Change no longer feels like something to endure. It feels like the natural breath of existence, inhale and exhale, coming and going, beginning and ending. The narrator's voice lowers, warm as dusk. Everything is changing. Nothing is mine to keep. The words echo through the stillness, not as sorrow, but as release. They do not ask for understanding. They ask for acceptance. He takes a slow breath and lets it linger. The truth of those words settles deep in his chest. Nothing is mine to keep. Not the moments, not the people, not even this body that carries me. And yet, in that realization, something expands rather than contracts. The heart opens, the fear softens. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Accept what is given, not as loss, but as life's rhythm." The Stoics never meant to erase emotion. They meant to teach harmony, to live with the beat of the universe rather than against it. He understands now what that means. When you fight change, life feels violent. But when you listen, when you move with it, even endings become music. He looks inward, tracing the moments of his own life, the friends who drifted away, the dreams that changed shape, the faces that once felt eternal but now live only in memory. Each one has left something behind, a trace, a lesson, a warmth. Even absence has its texture, its quiet beauty. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is truly gone. Stillness begins to fill him, not the stillness of being frozen, but of being carried. Like water that no longer resists its own flow, like the leaf that trusts the river to take it somewhere new. He begins to see that peace is not the end of movement, it is the grace within it. The narrator pauses for a moment, letting silence bloom. That silence feels sacred, like the pause between heartbeats, or the breath that comes before dawn. It is not emptiness, it is fullness without tension. He hears the faint hum of his own breathing. Each inhale brings the world closer. Each exhale lets it go. And somewhere between the two, he finds the space where stillness lives. Marcus spoke often of this kind of peace, the kind that is not built on control, but on surrender. Everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to thee. O universe, he wrote, it is a statement of belonging, of trust, the same trust that allows a river to reach the sea, or a flame to fade without fear of darkness. He smiles faintly. He has spent most of his life chasing permanence, building walls around what he loved, trying to preserve what was never meant to last. And now, here, in this quiet, he finally understands. Nothing lasts, and that is why everything matters. Change is not the opposite of stillness. It is the movement that reveals it, just as a song's beauty depends on both sound and silence. Life's beauty depends on both birth and decay. Outside, he imagines the last leaves of autumn falling through the air. The trees stand bare now, stripped down to their truth, and yet they do not despair. They know spring will return. They know that every loss is part of a larger balance. He whispers to himself, nothing is mine to keep. The words no longer sting, they comfort. They feel like truth, spoken by something ancient and kind. He closes his eyes and lets his breath deepen. The air moves in and out without effort. The world moves with it. He feels part of that rhythm now, the rhythm of rising and falling, of becoming and releasing. Stillness does not mean holding still. It means being present in motion. It means allowing life to unfold without demanding it to stay. In this state, even grief transforms. The ache remains, but it softens, becoming gratitude. Gratitude for what was, for what will be, for the simple privilege of existing between the two. The narrator returns, voice hushed as moonlight. When you stop clinging, it says, you begin to rest. And when you rest in the truth of impermanence, nothing can be taken from you because you no longer need to keep. He breathes out slowly, and it feels like the first true exhale of his life. No more resistance, no more fighting against what already is. Everything is changing, and somehow that is okay. He pictures the river once more, moving endlessly through its winding path. The water glows faintly under the moon. Every ripple catches the light, then disappears. Every sound rises and fades into silence. And yet, through all its movement, something remains, the river itself. That is what he has become. The current of his own life, forever shifting, yet still whole. Marcus's words return, whispering through memory, accept what is given, not as loss, but as life's rhythm. He lets them echo, slow and steady, until they blend with his breath. Outside, the night grows deeper. The music that once filled the room fades into quiet. The candle burns low, its flame a single steady glow. He feels himself dissolving into the rhythm of everything, of time, of breath, of life, endlessly remaking itself. There is nothing left to hold, nothing left to chase, only stillness, only flow, only peace. And as he drifts towards sleep, his final thought feels weightless, like a whisper carried by the wind. Everything is changing, nothing is mine to keep. And in that truth, I am free. Morning does not arrive all at once. It seeps in slowly, like a sigh. After the long night of reflection, the first light begins to touch the edges of thought. The stillness remains, but it feels lighter now, less like an ending and more like a beginning. Everything is changing. Nothing is mine to keep. The words linger from before, echoing softly in the mind. They are no longer reminders of loss. They are invitations to flow. But as the light deepens, another feeling begins to stir. Resistance. The quiet truth of impermanence is easy to accept when spoken softly in the dark. Yet in the light of day, when memories return, when the past pulls at the edges of the heart, it becomes harder to let go. This is where the real practice begins. He feels it now, the invisible weight of holding on, not in his hands, but in his chest, where the heart still clings to what once was. The Stoics called this resistance the root of suffering. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Pain, they taught, is not in the event, but in the resistance to what is. He imagines someone standing in a river, both hands gripping a heavy stone. The current tugs at their body, urging them forward, but they refuse to move. They fight the water, fight the pull, fight the truth that movement is natural. Their arms tremble, their breath grows shallow, and yet, the more they resist, the heavier the stone becomes. Resistance is pain. The narrator's voice returns, calm and measured, like the flow of the river itself. When you stop resisting, it says, life carries you. The words fall like drops of rain on still water. He lets that image stay. The stone, the current, the struggle. It feels painfully familiar. For years, he had tried to control life, to hold on to moments that were never meant to last. He had believed that to love meant to preserve, to protect, to fight against the inevitability of loss. But now he sees that clinging was never an act of love. It was an act of fear. Real love, he realizes, is like water. It gives, it adapts, it flows. It doesn't grasp. He breathes in deeply, letting the air expand in his chest. With each exhale, something small releases, a memory, a regret, a name, not gone, but loosened. Acceptance is not a single act. It is a slow, deliberate unfolding. It is learning to open the hand that has been clenched for too long. He remembers a line from Epictetus: "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will, and then your life will flow well." It sounds simple, almost too simple, but within it lies the freedom he has been searching for. Flow with what is, not with what was. The voice guides him further, softer now. Notice how your mind tries to hold on. It says, notice the places where you resist, the moments when you say, "This should not have happened." That is the weight you carry. That is the stone. He closes his eyes and feels it, the tension in the shoulders, the tightness in the jaw, the quiet ache behind every memory of what could have been different. Each one is a stone, but something else is here too. The river beneath it all, the current of life that continues, unbothered by the struggle. It does not demand surrender. It simply waits. Letting go is not about forgetting. It is about remembering differently. It is about looking at the stone in your hands and seeing that it was never meant to be carried forever. He takes another breath. The sound of the river grows louder in his mind, not rushing, but steady. He imagines releasing the stone. For a moment, it hesitates in his palms, then falls away, breaking the surface with a soft splash. The water swallows it gently, carrying it somewhere unseen. Instantly, his body feels lighter. His breath deepens. The current catches him, lifting him ever so slightly, and for the first time in a long while, he stops fighting. Marcus wrote, "Receive without pride. Let go without attachment." He whispers those words now, not as instruction, but as a prayer. Resistance, he understands, is the illusion of control, the belief that life can be held in place by the force of our will. But life is not a fixed shape. It is movement, transformation, and rhythm. To resist that is to suffer. To move with it is to be free. Outside, he imagines the morning sunlight filtering through the trees. Dust floats in the beams of light, each particle turning, glowing, disappearing. The world looks still, but everything within it is moving, subtly, beautifully, eternally. The narrator speaks again, almost as if answering his thoughts. Acceptance is not defeat. It is grace in motion. He lets those words fill him. Grace in motion. The act of living without resistance. The art of trusting that life knows what it is doing. He recalls the moments he once called mistakes, and now he sees them differently, not as detours, but as rivers meeting other rivers, flowing toward the same sea. Every heartbreak, every ending, every uncertain turn was part of the same current that brought him here. He feels his breath slow. His pulse softens. The muscles in his body begin to release their quiet grip. This is what it means to stop resisting, not to give up, but to stop fighting the truth that everything moves. To accept life is not to be passive. It is to participate fully in its rhythm, without demanding that it change its tune. The river continues to carry him. The light shimmers across the surface. And for the first time, he does not try to steer. He just lets it be. When you stop resisting, the voice repeats, life carries you. He smiles faintly, because now he understands. It always has. The stone has fallen from his hands, and the river carries it away. For a long moment, he watches the ripples widen, fade, and disappear into still water. What remains is not emptiness, but space, a quiet openness that feels both fragile and eternal. In that space, a new kind of peace begins to form. Letting go, he realizes, is not a single act. It is a rhythm, an inhale, an exhale, repeated over and over until the body remembers what the mind has forgotten. It is not a one-time surrender, but a continual return. The narrator's voice drifts softly through the air, like a breath on glass. Breathe in, it says, and know that this moment is enough. Breathe out, it whispers, and let it be. The words move like waves, gentle, repetitive, timeless. He closes his eyes. The breath comes slowly, deep from the center of the body. With each inhale, he feels the world arrive, the air, the sound of unseen life, the pulse of the earth beneath him. With each exhale, he releases what was never meant to stay: worry, memory, expectation. This moment is enough. I let it be. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time." To resist life, then, is to resist the unfolding of eternity itself. To surrender is to return to harmony with that unfolding, to let life breathe through you, rather than trying to breathe against it. He imagines himself lying in a wide field. The wind moves through the grass, soft and invisible. It touches everything, but keeps nothing. The blades bend, then rise again. Nothing in nature resists the wind, and that is why nothing breaks. He feels the air move against his skin, slow and cool. This, he realizes, is what surrender feels like, not collapse, but openness. It is the gentle strength of something that no longer needs to fight. The voice continues, its tone low and steady, almost like a heartbeat. Surrender is not weakness. It is trust. It is remembering that you are not separate from what moves you. He lets those words settle. For so long, he believed that control was the source of strength, the ability to shape life, to command it, to make it obey. But control is heavy. It is the hand that grips the stone long after the river has already decided where to flow. Surrender, on the other hand, is light. It asks for no power, only presence. He breathes again, slow and deliberate. Inhale, this moment is enough. Exhale, I let it be. The rhythm becomes his anchor. Outside, he imagines the morning wind brushing over a vast field. It passes silently through the tall grass, leaving no mark, no trace. The grass sways, but does not resist. It does not demand that the wind slow down, nor does it wish to keep it. It simply moves. and then stands again. That is what it means to surrender, to move, to yield, and to rise again, unchanged at the core. The Stoics, though often misunderstood as cold or detached, spoke deeply of this kind of surrender. They called it amor fati, the love of fate, not just acceptance, but love for whatever arrives. Marcus wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." To live this way is to trust that even pain, even loss, even uncertainty are not interruptions of life. They are part of its design. The narrator's voice fades slightly, leaving space for breath. The silence that follows is soft, not empty. It feels like a held note in a song that never truly ends. He lets his breathing guide him deeper into stillness. Every inhale draws in the world. Every exhale releases his grip on it. Inhale, the cool air of morning. Exhale, the warmth of yesterday. Inhale, what is. Exhale, what was. Life moves through him as naturally as wind through the trees. He remembers a phrase from Lao Tzu, "Be like water, do not contend." Even across cultures and centuries, the wisdom is the same. Water surrenders, and because of that, it endures. To surrender, then, is not to lose. It is to align. It is to fall into rhythm with what has always been. He opens his eyes and looks toward the window. The light has changed again, as it always does. Shadows move quietly across the walls. Nothing in the room is the same as it was a moment ago, and yet it all feels perfectly right. He realizes that surrender is not an act you perform once and finish. It is something you live, moment by moment, breath by breath. Every time you soften your grip on the world, you return to it more fully. The voice returns, calm and grounding. Let your breath be your prayer. It says, let each inhale remind you that life is already enough. Let each exhale remind you that you do not need to hold it. He follows the rhythm again. Inhale. Exhale. The sound of air becomes music, the kind that does not need words. In his mind, he sees the wind move again through the fields, gentle, endless, leaving no footprints. The grass bends, the clouds drift, the light shifts. Nothing stays, and yet everything belongs. He feels that truth within him now, as clear as breath itself. Life was never meant to be gripped. It was meant to be felt. To surrender is to trust the flow that carries all things forward, to see that there is no separation between yourself and the wind, between your life and the movement of the world. The voice speaks once more, almost as a whisper. This moment is enough. A pause. I let it be. The words dissolve into silence, but their rhythm remains. He continues to breathe, slowly, gently, as the world moves around him. And for the first time, he does not need to do anything more, because now he knows. Surrender is not the end of effort. It is the beginning of peace. The rhythm of the breath continues, slow, steady, infinite. The last whisper of the meditation still echoes faintly. This moment is enough. I let it be. Somewhere between those words, a realization unfolds like dawn touching the horizon. Surrender, he understands now, is not only for life itself, it is also for love. For so long, he had confused love with holding on, believing that to keep something close, he must grip it tightly, that to lose what he loved was to lose a part of himself. But in this quiet space, where breath and awareness move together, he begins to see how mistaken that was. True love, he realizes, is not possession, it is presence. The narrator's voice returns, calm and slow, like sunlight spreading over a still ocean. True love exists only where freedom breathes. He lets those words sink in. Freedom and love, two forces that have always seemed opposed. But in truth, they are one and the same. Love without freedom becomes control. Freedom without love becomes distance. But when they meet, something sacred appears. Affection without demand, closeness without fear, connection without cages. He imagines the sun rising. It touches the trees, the rivers, the faces of strangers, the walls of forgotten homes. It warms everything, yet holds nothing. It gives without asking. It shines without claiming. That, he thinks, is what love should be. The Stoics, too, spoke of this kind of love. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Love, for Marcus, was not an ownership of others, but a reverence for the shared miracle of being alive at the same moment in time. He breathes in, softly. The air feels warm, like sunlight itself. In the past, love had been an ache, a reaching, a need, a constant grasping for certainty. He wanted to know, to keep, to define. But what he called love was often fear in disguise, the fear of impermanence, the fear of being forgotten. Now, as he exhales, that need begins to fade. Love feels lighter, cleaner. It no longer demands to be returned. It simply moves outward, like light. He remembers Epictetus's wisdom. Never say of anything, "I have lost it," but only, "I have returned it." The same is true of love. When we love without owning, even parting does not feel like loss. It feels like the gentle return of something borrowed. He thinks of the people who once filled his world, the ones he called his, the ones who shaped him, the ones who left. Each love had left a trace, a warmth that still glows somewhere in the quiet parts of memory. None of them truly belonged to him, and yet each one remains, not as possession, but as presence. Love, he realizes, is not something we have. It is something we are. The voice grows softer now. Its rhythm like the sea at dusk. To love without owning, it says, is to let your heart move as the sun moves, given light, but never clinging to what it touches. He imagines that light again, passing gently across the earth. It touches the sea, the mountains, the leaves, the skin of sleeping children. And when the day ends, the light does not grieve the horizon. It knows that night too is part of its journey. This, he realizes, is what it means to love while letting go. To love, even knowing it will end. To give warmth, even when no one stays to thank you. To shine, even when no one looks back. That is love at its most honest, an act of giving without fear of fading. He recalls another line from Marcus. What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee. Love that clings only to one person, one outcome, one possession, eventually loses its nature. But love that flows freely, like sunlight, like air, nourishes all things, including the one who gives it. He sits quietly, eyes closed, breathing with the rhythm of that truth. Every inhale feels like receiving. Every exhale feels like giving back. the two become indistinguishable. He imagines standing once more in the open field from before, the same wind moving through the tall grass. The wind does not choose what to touch. It flows where it will, caressing everything with the same soft presence. That is love too. An invisible grace moving through the world, asking for nothing, leaving warmth behind. He thinks of all the times he loved with fear, with the question, will it last? And smiles softly now at the tenderness of his own humanity. To love is to risk, but to cling is to suffer. And yet, every soul must learn this truth in its own time. The narrator's voice grows quieter, almost intimate. Love cannot live where there is control. It withers in the grasp of possession, but in the open air of freedom, it grows wild and infinite. He breathes those words in. Inhale the warmth of connection. Exhale the freedom of release. And with each breath, he feels his heart expand, no longer confined to one person, one memory, one dream. It beats in rhythm with everything around him, the river, the air, the trees, the soft pulse of the world itself. Love, he realizes, is not a contract. It is a current. It flows through us, changes us, and moves on. And that movement is its beauty. The music in the background begins to fade, slow and deep, like twilight melting into night. The last light of the sun sinks below the horizon. The air cools. Everything feels wide and open again. The voice returns one last time, steady and kind. You have to love while letting go. The words settle in his chest like a heartbeat. He understands now that love's purpose was never to stay. It was to awaken him to the wholeness that was always there. As the music dissolves into silence, he feels no loss, only stillness. The stillness of a heart that has learned how to give without fear, how to love without owning, and how to rest in the gentle, eternal flow of life itself. The night that began with restlessness has softened into calm. The long storm of thoughts, fears, and attachments has passed, leaving behind a still, open space. The air feels lighter now, rinsed of noise and weight. Every lesson, the river of change, the practice of surrender, the love that lets go, has led here to this moment of quiet. What remains is not emptiness, but clarity, like the sky after rain. He breathes in deeply, and the air feels new, cool, clean, untouched. Freedom, he realizes, does not come from winning or overcoming. It comes from releasing the need to fight at all. It comes from standing still after the storm and feeling the world hold you again. Dawn begins to rise. The sky turns from gray to pale gold, and the last drops of rain slide off the window like tears that have finally finished their work. The world is quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because everything has found its rhythm again. The narrator's voice returns, soft but steady. When you stop fighting life, it starts to hold you. The words feel like warmth spreading through cold hands. For years, he had thought freedom meant control, the ability to make things go his way, to master every circumstance. But that kind of control had never brought peace. It had only tightened the knots of fear and expectation. Now, standing in this new morning, he feels something different. The quiet freedom that comes from surrender. The realization that peace begins, as Epictetus said, when you stop trying to control what you can't. He looks out at the horizon. The world is glistening, alive with light that seems to come not only from the sun, but from within everything it touches. The trees shimmer, the grass bends gently under the weight of dew. The light does not rush, it does not demand, it simply returns, filling every corner with calm. That is what freedom feels like. Not the shout of victory, but the sigh of acceptance. He thinks of Marcus Aurelius again. If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your judgment of them. The emperor had known that the deepest form of strength is not in resistance but in perspective, in choosing peace when the world offers chaos. He closes his eyes and listens to the rhythm of his breath. Each inhale feels like the world entering. Each exhale feels like release. The storm that once raged in his thoughts has turned into a gentle breeze moving through his chest. The narrator's voice slows, matching the rhythm of his breathing. Freedom, it says, is not in conquering the storm. It is in learning to stand in the rain without fear. He imagines walking barefoot through the wet grass outside. The earth feels soft, forgiving. Every step leaves a mark that the rain quickly erases. The wind carries the scent of renewal, of beginnings. Nothing in this moment asks for effort. Everything simply is. For the first time, he feels held, not by anyone, not by anything, but by life itself. The Stoics believed that nature was not an enemy to be mastered, but a teacher to be followed. To live according to nature was to live in harmony with what is real, to trust the flow of time, the rise and fall of circumstance, the dance between joy and loss. He understands that now. Freedom is not escape, it is alignment. He remembers a line from Seneca: "No man is free who is not master of himself." And yet, self-mastery is not domination. It is awareness. It is the quiet ability to see one's own emotions without drowning in them. It is the courage to stand in uncertainty without needing it to resolve. He looks again at the soft morning light spilling across the room. It touches everything equally: the table, the empty cup, the walls marked with shadows. Light does not choose. It simply shines. Perhaps peace is the same. It does not arrive through choice or effort, but through allowing. When we stop fighting the weather of life, the light returns on its own. He breathes again, slowly. The air feels lighter now, as if it no longer belongs to him but to everything. He realizes that what he had been seeking all along was never outside. It was this: the quiet permission to stop fixing, to stop striving, to stop chasing meaning long enough to feel it already here. The narrator's tone deepens, wrapping around the listener like a gentle embrace. When you stop fighting life, it says again, it starts to hold you. The words feel alive, like truth spoken by something ancient. He remembers the storm from before, the chaos of thoughts, the ache of resistance, the fear of letting go. And now, in the still air after the rain, he can see it differently. The storm was never against him. It was cleansing him. Every drop had been a release, every flash of lightning a moment of illumination. Peace, he realizes, does not come after the storm. It is born from within it. The sound of music fades softly in the background, like light falling across water. He lets the stillness expand. There is no need to do anything more, no need to fix, no need to understand. The world is enough, exactly as it is. Marcus's words come to mind again, and he whispers them quietly. Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. He smiles, not because he understands fate completely, but because he no longer needs to. The peace that comes from acceptance is not knowledge, it is trust. The air moves through the open window. Somewhere, a bird sings once and then falls silent. Everything feels connected in its simplicity. This, he realizes, is freedom. Not the power to change what is happening, but the grace to meet it with an open heart. He inhales one last time, and in that breath, he feels the full weight of the journey, the struggle, the letting go, the learning to love without owning. All of it has brought him here, to this quiet morning after the storm. The narrator's voice fades into the rhythm of the wind. Peace begins, it whispers. When you stop trying to control what you can't, and in that gentle truth, the world seems to pause. The rain has ended, the light has returned, and in the stillness that follows, freedom breathes. The rain has ended, but its echo still lingers, a quiet rhythm in the background of the morning. Everything glows under the gentle light that follows storms. The world, washed clean, breathing again. In that stillness, a softer truth begins to rise. Freedom is not grand. It is small, humble, almost invisible. It lives in the pauses between thoughts, in the breath that no longer needs to reach for anything. The narrator's voice returns, slower now, carrying the weight and warmth of compassion. You don't need to fix the world tonight. A pause. Even the stars rest. The words feel like a hand on the shoulder of someone who has carried too much for too long. This is not a message for philosophers or saints. It is for the ordinary soul. The tired adult sitting in bed at the end of a long day. The one who worries about bills, deadlines, love, and loss. The one who keeps trying to hold the sky together, believing it will all fall apart if they stop. He smiles faintly because he has been that person too. Always chasing completion, always believing peace will come once everything is in order. But life, he realizes now, was never meant to be fixed. It was meant to be felt. He remembers what Marcus Aurelius once wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The emperor's words echo across time, reaching into this moment like light through a half-open door. It is not the world that needs to rest, it is the mind that keeps trying to carry it. He looks up, as if he could see the night sky still hanging behind the daylight. Even the stars, he thinks, burn and fade. Even they rest in darkness between their shining. The voice continues, slow and rhythmic, matching the pace of breath. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to be small. You are allowed to simply exist without solving everything. For a moment, he lets the idea sink in, that he does not have to be extraordinary to be at peace. That perhaps the greatest wisdom lies not in doing, but in allowing. He imagines consciousness as a vast sky. Thoughts drift through it like clouds, some dark, some soft, some heavy with rain. They appear, they move, they dissolve. The sky never chases them, never clings, never fights. It simply lets them pass. That, he realizes, is the nature of the mind. It was never meant to be controlled like a machine. It was meant to be watched like weather, changing, moving, alive. The Stoics understood this art long before psychology gave it a name. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The storm is not the problem. It is the belief that you must hold it back. He closes his eyes and breathes. Inhale, exhale. Thoughts rise, linger, fade. Each one is a cloud, and behind them, the sky remains untouched. You don't need to fix the world tonight. The phrase repeats gently in his mind. He realizes how long he has been running, through years, through worries, through the endless noise of doing, always trying to reach a place where he could finally rest, yet never stopping long enough to realize rest was already here. Peace, he now sees, is not a destination. It is what happens when you stop walking for a moment and let the world catch up to you. He remembers something Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Most of the weight he carries, he realizes, was never real. It was imagined, stories his mind told to make sense of the unknown. He lets a breath escape, long and slow. Each exhale feels like setting down a heavy pack he forgot he was holding. The narrator's tone grows softer, like a lullaby whispered in a quiet room. You don't have to be perfect to deserve rest. You don't have to understand everything to feel safe. You only have to breathe. He breathes again. The room feels wider. The world feels larger. Somewhere, a distant thought flickers, smallness. For years, he had feared it. The idea of being small made him uneasy, as if insignificance meant failure. But now, it feels freeing. To be small is to be part of something vast. To belong without needing to control. He thinks of the ocean. Every drop of water is small, yet together they make something infinite. Maybe a human life is the same, tiny, fleeting, yet part of something boundless. He looks inward again. The sky of his mind stretches endlessly, even when filled with clouds. Beneath the noise, there's always space. Beneath the space, there is peace. Even the stars rest. The voice repeats. He imagines them, distant suns burning for millions of years, only to fade, collapse, and be reborn. Even they do not shine forever, yet their light continues, traveling through space long after they have gone. That, too, is a kind of peace. To know that one's light can exist without needing to last. The thought makes him smile. He realizes that this is what the Stoics meant by living according to nature, to accept that everything, even himself, moves in cycles, activity and rest, shining and fading, holding on and letting go. Inhale, exhale. He begins to repeat it quietly, as if reciting a prayer. This moment is enough. I let it be. I do not need to fix the world tonight. Each sentence becomes softer until they dissolve into the rhythm of breathing. The narrator's voice fades almost completely now, replaced by the sound of a slow, deep hum, like the heartbeat of the universe itself. He lies back, letting his thoughts drift. They rise and fall like clouds, but he no longer chases them. The sky is wide, and that is enough. Marcus's words return one last time. Gentle as sleep. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. He understands now. The world outside may continue to move, to spin, to change, but within, there is space vast enough to hold it all. He breathes one last time before rest claims him. The sky of the mind opens wide. The clouds move softly across it. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers again, barely audible now, fading into peace. You don't need to fix the world tonight. Even the stars rest. The stars have settled into their quiet rhythm, faint against the dark sky. Their light, though distant, feels close, soft, familiar, like a breath that has been waiting to exhale. The world outside no longer moves with urgency. Even the air seems to rest. Inside, everything slows. The mind, once wide as the sky, begins to quiet, not because thoughts have vanished, but because they no longer demand to be followed. Each one drifts gently, like a cloud losing its shape at the edge of evening. He remembers the words from before. You don't need to fix the world tonight. Even the stars rest. And now, he feels it, what rest truly means. It is not absence. It is presence without effort. The narrator's voice returns, soft as dusk. Now, let your mind rest. The words arrive like a final invitation, not a command, but a kindness. The kind of kindness that allows the listener to stop performing, to stop pretending to be more than what they already are. He exhales. The sound of breath blends with the soft hum of the music beneath the voice. Each note fades slowly, dissolving into warmth. This is where the journey was always leading, not toward achievement, but toward surrender, not toward becoming something more, but toward remembering that he was always enough. The narrator continues, its tone steady, soothing, unhurried. You are enough. You have done enough. Sleep. The words are simple, but they carry the weight of truth that only simplicity can hold. For years, he had been running, chasing meaning, success, understanding, belonging. But every chase had led him back to this same still point. This quiet reminder that peace was never somewhere to reach. It was something to return to. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there." That strength, he realizes now, is not action. It is being. It is the calm that exists before every thought, before every fear, before every need to change. He lets his awareness drift like mist. There is no destination, no direction. The mind begins to dim its lights, one by one, like windows going dark across a sleeping city. The narrator's voice slows with him, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to prove. You are already what you were seeking. He feels the words ripple through him like waves on a still lake. For so long, he had believed that fulfillment meant arrival, that one day he would reach a place where he would finally be whole. But now, he sees how false that image was. Life, he realizes, is not a straight road leading to completion. It is a circle, always moving, always beginning again. As the music softens further, he remembers a phrase he once read, "You will never arrive, and that is how you become." He smiles faintly. It no longer feels like a contradiction. It feels like peace. To never arrive is to remain alive, to remain open, learning, feeling, breathing. To become is not to reach, but to rest within the constant unfolding of what is. He lies back, his body sinking into the warmth beneath him. The edges between him and the world begin to blur. His breath moves slower now, deeper. Inhale, presence. Exhale, surrender. Outside, a breeze moves through the trees, carrying the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. The sound is soft, almost like breathing. Nature itself seems to rest alongside him. He thinks again of the Stoics, of their quiet wisdom. Epictetus wrote, "Freedom is the right to live as we wish." But perhaps true freedom, he thinks, is not about wishing at all. It is the ability to stop wishing, to rest in what already is. The voice returns, low and close, as if whispering just beside him. "This is enough. You are enough. Let everything go." Each word lands with the weight of a lullaby. He feels the body release completely. The muscles loosen. The mind stops naming. The world narrows to one single rhythm, the slow, steady beat of life itself. Somewhere in the distance, the music fades to almost nothing, a single tone stretching thin, like light disappearing beyond the horizon. There is no more searching, no more resistance, only quiet, only being. He understands now that rest is not escape, it is communion. It is the soul returning to its natural rhythm, the rhythm it shares with every wave, every star, every breath. Marcus had written, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." And that is where he is now, not asleep yet, but dissolving gently into that inner space where the mind and the world finally agree to stop speaking. He lets the last thought pass through him, not trying to hold it, not trying to name it, just watching, breathing, existing. The voice fades with him, its final words hovering like the last light before dawn. You will never arrive, and that is how you become. The night settles softly, like a blanket drawn over a tired world. Every thought that once stirred the mind has found its place. Every wave of emotion has folded into calm. What began as chaos has become clarity. What began as longing has turned into peace. The journey through the 5 chapters, the storm of thoughts, the distance of awareness, the river of change, the quiet act of acceptance, and the gentle light of freedom, was never about reaching somewhere far. It was always about coming home, home to the breath, home to the self, home to the stillness that was waiting beneath all the noise. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there." Tonight, that strength feels like calm water reflecting the stars, steady, silent, endless. You do not need to fix anything. You do not need to be more than what you already are. You have walked through every season of your soul, and now it is time to rest. Let the thoughts drift like clouds across the open sky of your mind. Let the heart settle into its quiet rhythm. Let the body remember what peace feels like, because you are enough. You have done enough. And in this stillness, life holds you gently. Now, close your eyes and sleep well.